The parking lot was almost empty when David pulled up in his old Honda that Tuesday morning. He sat there for a moment, staring at the store he technically owned. Well, not just this one. He owned 243 stores just like it across the country. But sitting here in his worn-out jeans and a jacket he'd borrowed from his brother-in-law, he felt like a stranger. The sign above the entrance was flickering. Half the letters were dim and one was completely out. David made a mental note of that, though he wasn't here to fix signs. He was here to understand why this particular location had the worst customer satisfaction scores in the entire region and why employee turnover was through the roof. He stepped out of the car and walked toward the entrance. The automatic doors struggled to open, making a grinding sound that set his teeth on edge. Inside, the fluorescent lights hummed too loudly, and there was a faint smell of old cleaning products mixed with something he couldn't quite place. A woman stood behind the customer service desk, scrolling through her phone. Her name tag read manager, but didn't include a name. David approached slowly, suddenly feeling nervous in a way he hadn't felt in years. When was the last time he'd actually applied for a job? "Excuse me," he said. "I'm here for my first day." "I'm the new hire?" The manager looked up, barely making eye contact. "Oh, right, you're the guy." She set her phone down with obvious reluctance. "What was your name again?" "Mike," David said, using the alias he'd chosen. "Mike Patterson." "Right, Mike. Okay, so basically you're going to shadow someone today and learn the ropes. We're short-staffed, so we need you up to speed fast." She glanced around the store, which had only a handful of customers browsing the aisles. "Let me see who's available." David waited while she made a call on the store phone. He could hear her side of the conversation clearly. "Hey, can you take the new guy today?" "No, why not?" "Ooh, fine." She hung up and tried someone else. "You busy? Can you train someone? Seriously? Whatever." After 3 more calls, she hung up and sighed dramatically. Everyone's apparently too busy to help. "Just wait here a second." David stood there, watching employees pass by. A young guy with earbuds and stocked shelves without looking up. Another employee chatted with a coworker, laughing about something on her phone. Nobody acknowledged him. Nobody smiled. The energy in the store felt flat, lifeless. He thought about his corporate office, where everyone knew his name, where assistants anticipated his needs before he voiced them. This was a completely different world, and it was his world. He'd built this company from the ground up 20 years ago. When had it become so cold? "Hey," a voice said beside him. He turned to see a woman in her late 20s, wearing the standard company vest over a simple blue shirt. Her name tag said Cashier and had a handwritten name below it. She was carrying a box of supplies, but had stopped when she saw him standing there. "Are you the new hire? Mike, right?" "Yeah, that's me," David said, surprised that anyone had bothered to learn his name. She smiled, and it was genuine. Not the practiced customer service smile he'd seen in training videos, but real warmth. "I'm Rachel. Looks like you've been standing here a while. Let me drop this off, and I'll show you around, okay?" "That would be great," David said. Feeling relief wash over him, Rachel set the box down at a nearby register and returned quickly. "Don't take it personally," she said quietly as they walked toward the back. "It's been a rough month here. We lost 4 people, so everyone's stretched thin and kind of stressed." "What happened to them?" David asked. 2 quit because they found better pay elsewhere. 1 moved away. And 1, well, she got fired for being late too many times, but honestly, she was taking the bus, and it kept breaking down. I don't think anyone asked why she was late." Rachel shrugged. "It is what is it, I guess." David filed that information away. He'd implemented strict attendance policies across all stores last year, designed to improve efficiency. Hearing about it from this side made him uncomfortable. Over the next hour, Rachel showed him the basics. How to clock in, where the break room was, how the register system worked. She was patient, explaining things clearly and checking to make sure he understood. When other employees rushed past without acknowledging them, she didn't seem bothered. She just kept focusing on helping him. "Sorry, I know this is a lot," Rachel said as they stood at one of the registers. "The system is kind of old and clunky. It crashes sometimes, especially during rush hours." David stared at the screen. It was running software he recognized from at least 8 years ago. He'd approved the budget for new systems 3 times, but somehow it had never been implemented at the store level. The money had probably been redirected to other priorities. Marketing, maybe, or his executive bonuses. "You okay?" Rachel asked. "You look a little pale." "Yeah, I'm fine," David said. "Just trying to take it all in." "Don't worry, you'll get it. It takes everyone a few days." She glanced at the clock. "Listen, I'm supposed to go on break, but do you want me to grab you a coffee from the back? It's terrible coffee, but it's free and it's caffeinated." David was about to decline when he realized something. In his real life, people brought him coffee all the time. Premium coffee. But nobody had ever asked if he wanted some just to be kind. That would be really nice, actually. "Thank you." "No problem," Rachel said. "We've got to look out for each other around here." As she walked away, David stood there in his borrowed jacket, surrounded by flickering lights and humming refrigerators, and wondered what else he'd been missing. Rachel came back with 2 paper cups, steam rising from the cheap plastic lids. She handed one to David and took a sip from her own. "I wasn't kidding about the coffee being terrible," she said, making a face. "But after a few hours on your feet, you stopped caring about the taste." David took a careful sip. It was burnt and bitter, nothing like the expensive espresso machine in his office. But somehow, sitting here with Rachel, it felt more real than any coffee he'd had in months. "So, Mike," Rachel said, leaning against the counter, "what brings you here?" "If you don't mind me asking," David had rehearsed this story. "Got laid off from my last job about 2 months ago. Manufacturing plant closed down. Been looking ever since, and this was the first place that called me back." Rachel nodded sympathetically. "That's rough, I'm sorry, but hey, you're here now. That's what matters, right?" Before David could respond, a customer approached with a cart full of items. Rachel immediately straightened up, her whole demeanor shifting into professional mode. "Hi there. How are you doing today?" The customer, an elderly woman with silver hair, smiled back. "Oh, I'm doing just fine, dear. How's your mother feeling?" "She's having a good week. Thank you for asking, Mrs. Chun," Rachel said as she began scanning items. "Those new medications are helping with the pain." David watched as Rachel chatted easily with the woman, asking about her grandchildren, commenting on her purchases, making genuine conversation. It wasn't rushed or forced. When the total came up, Mrs. Chun's face fell slightly. "Oh my," she said, digging through her purse. "I think I miscalculated. I'm a little short." "How much do you need it to be?" Rachel asked quietly. "I only have $40 until Friday," Mrs. Chun said, embarrassed. "I thought I had enough." Rachel glanced around quickly, then started removing items from the bags. "Okay, let's see what we can put back. You definitely need the bread and milk. The medications are essential. Maybe we skip the cookies this time?" "No, sweetheart, I promised my grandson," Mrs. Chun said. "He's coming to visit tomorrow." David saw Rachel pause for just a second, then make a decision. She pulled out her own wallet from her pocket and slipped a $10 bill into the register. "You know what, Mrs. Chun? We're running a special today. Looks like you qualify for a discount. Your total is now $39.50. Mrs. Chun's eyes filled with tears. "Rachel, you don't have to. It's already done," Rachel said gently, handing her the receipt. "Tell your grandson I said hello." After Mrs. Chun left, David stood there in shock. Rachel had just used her own money to help a customer. "You didn't have to do that," he said. Rachel shrugged, counting the remaining bills in her wallet before putting it away. "She's a regular. Her husband passed away last year and she's living on Social Security. $10 isn't going to break me, but it might have really stressed her out." She looked at David. "I know it's probably against policy or whatever, but some things are more important than rules, you know?" David did know. Or at least he used to know. Somewhere along the way, building his company, he'd forgotten about the Mrs. Chuns of the world. He'd focused on profit margins and quarterly reports and shareholder value. When had he last thought about the actual people walking through his doors? The rest of the day continued in the same pattern. Rachel trained him patiently, never making him feel stupid when he messed up the register or couldn't find something in the inventory system. She introduced him to other employees, trying to get them to be friendlier, though most just nodded and walked away. During lunch break, David sat with Rachel in the small, dingy break room. The refrigerator made a rattling noise, and one of the chairs had a broken leg that someone had propped up with old magazines. "So," David said, unwrapping the sandwich he'd brought from home. "How long have you worked here?" 3 years in January, Rachel said, scrolling through her phone. "Started as a part-timer during college, then life happened and here I am. You didn't finish school?" Rachel's expression shifted, becoming more guarded. "My mom got sick. Stage 3 cancer. Someone had to help with bills and take care of her during treatment. My little brother was still in high school, so..." She trailed off. "I was going to be a teacher. Maybe I still will someday." "I'm sorry," David said, and he meant it. "Don't be. She's in remission now. We got lucky." Rachel took a bite of her own lunch, which looked like leftovers in a plastic container. "That's why I work here during the day and do bartending 3 nights a week. Medical debt doesn't pay itself." David felt something twist in his chest. This woman, who'd just given $10 to a customer, was working 2 jobs to pay off her mother's medical bills. That must be exhausting. "You do what you have to do," Rachel said simply. "Besides, I actually like it here most days. I know it doesn't seem like it from the outside, but there are good people here. They're just tired and underpaid and dealing with their own stuff." "What about management?" David asked carefully. "Are they supportive?" Rachel laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Our manager? She's only here because her uncle is some regional director or something. She shows up late, leaves early, spends most of her time on her phone. But hey, she's never mean to us, so I guess that's something." David made mental notes. He'd met that regional director. Nice guy on the surface, but apparently running a nepotism operation. The afternoon shift was busier. David struggled to keep up, his fingers fumbling on the old keyboard, customers getting impatient. Rachel covered for him seamlessly, jumping between registers, helping bag items, apologizing for delays with such sincere charm that people's irritation melted away. Around 4 o'clock, a situation unfolded that David would think about for days afterward. A young mother came through with 2 small children, her cart filled with diapers, formula, and a few groceries. When Rachel rang everything up, the woman's card was declined. "Can you try again?" the woman asked, her voice tight with stress. One of her kids was crying in the cart. Rachel tried 3 more times. Declined each time. The woman's face crumpled. "I don't understand. I got paid yesterday. There should be money. Maybe the bank system is down?" Rachel suggested gently. "That happens sometimes." "I need the formula," the woman said desperately. "He won't take any other kind? Can I just get that? I'll come back for the rest tomorrow." Rachel started setting aside items, but the manager appeared seemingly out of nowhere. "Is there a problem?" "Her card isn't working," Rachel explained. "We're just figuring out, then she needs to leave," the manager said flatly. "We can't hold items. Store policy." "I just need 5 minutes to call my bank," the woman pleaded. "We have other customers waiting," the manager said, gesturing to the line that had formed behind her. "You'll need to step aside." David saw Rachel's jaw tighten. The young mother, now crying along with her child, started to push her cart away. Rachel reached out and touched her arm. "Wait, give me 1 second." She turned to the manager. "I'll buy the formula for her." "On my break? Can we just set it aside for literally 5 minutes while she calls her bank?" "No special treatment," the manager said. "Those are the rules, Rachel." "You know that." "They're stupid rules," Rachel said, her voice rising slightly. "She's a regular customer with 2 babies and a card that's probably just having a technical issue. Where's the humanity in making her leave with nothing?" The manager's face hardened. "Watch your tone. You want to buy her stuff. Do it on your own time. Otherwise, clear the line." David wanted to step in, wanted to reveal who he was and fire this manager on the spot. But he couldn't. Not yet. He had to see how this played out. Rachel took a deep breath, then looked at the young mother. "Okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm buying the formula right now. You call your bank, and when you figure it out, you can pay me back. Or don't, it's fine either way. Before anyone could protest, Rachel grabbed the formula and walked to another register, pulling out her credit card. David watched her swipe it, saw her wince slightly at the amount, then saw her hand the formula to the grateful mother. The manager stormed off, muttering about insubordination. The other customers in line, who'd been watching the whole thing, started clapping. One older man called out, "That's how you treat people right there." "Good for you, miss." Rachel's face flushed red, clearly uncomfortable with the attention. She just waved it off and got back to work, scanning David's next customer with hands that shook slightly. When they finally had a quiet moment, David said, "That was really something." Rachel didn't look at him. "I probably just got myself written up. Maybe worse. But you did the right thing." "Yeah, well, doing the right thing doesn't pay bills," Rachel said, then immediately looked guilty. "Sorry, that sounded bitter. I hate seeing people treated like they don't matter, you know? We're all just trying to get through the day." David nodded slowly. He was starting to understand just how broken his company had become, and how people like Rachel were the only thing holding it together die Wednesday. David had learned more about his company in 2 days than he had in the last 5 years of executive meetings. He arrived early, before his shift started, and sat in his car watching employees arrive. Most looked tired. Nobody smiled as they walked through that flickering entrance. Rachel pulled up in an old Toyota with a dent in the passenger door. She was eating something from a paper bag, probably breakfast on the go. When she saw David getting out of his car, she waited for him. "Morning," she called out. "You came back?" "I wasn't sure you would after yesterday. Why wouldn't I?" David asked. Rachel laughed. "Most new people don't last a week. This isn't exactly the dream job, Mike. Yesterday was actually pretty tame compared to some days." They walked in together, and David noticed Rachel greeting the maintenance worker by name, asking about his daughter's soccer game. She knew people. Really knew them. Not just their names, but their lives, their families, their struggles. The morning started slowly. Rachel continued training him, showing him how to handle returns and exchanges. "The trick is to really listen to what customers are saying," she explained. "Half the time they're frustrated about something that has nothing to do with us. They're just having a bad day. A little kindness goes a long way." Around 10 o'clock, a man in his 50s approached the register with a portable heater. He set it down heavily, looking exhausted. "I need to return this." "Okay, no problem," Rachel said cheerfully. "Can I ask what was wrong with it?" "Nothing's wrong with it," the man said quietly. I can't afford it right now. My hours got cut at work and I need the money for rent." Rachel's smile faltered for just a moment. "I understand. Do you have your receipt?" The man pulled out a crumpled paper. Rachel processed the return silently, but David could see her mind working. When she handed the man his cash back, she said, "Sir, I don't mean to overstep, but are you okay? Do you have heat at home?" The man's eyes got watery. "I've got a space heater in the bedroom. My daughter and I sleep in there to save on heating bills. It's fine. We're fine." "Hold on 1 second," Rachel said. She disappeared into the back and returned a few minutes later with a slightly dented box. "This heater was returned last week because the box was damaged during shipping. The heater itself works perfectly fine. Since it's technically damaged merchandise, I can sell it to you for 70% off. Would that help?" The man stared at her. "Are you serious?" "Completely serious. And if anyone asks, you talked to Rachel and she approved it." She processed the transaction before he could argue, and the man left with tears in his eyes, thanking her over and over. David had to step away for a moment. He went to the bathroom and splashed cold water on his face. In his world of corporate strategy, this man would have been a statistic, a number showing decreased consumer spending. But here he was a father trying to keep his daughter warm. And Rachel had seen that. She hadn't just followed policy. She'd seen a human being who needed help. When David returned, he found Rachel training him on inventory management. "Sorry," she said. I know that got a little emotional back there. I probably bent the rules again. Don't apologize, David said firmly. What you did was right? Yeah, well, right doesn't always match up with policy, Rachel said. I've already got one write-up from yesterday. The manager sent me an email about it last night. One more, and I'm probably suspended. That's ridiculous, David said, anger rising in his chest. Rachel shrugged. It is what it is. I knew the risk when I did it. I'd do it again, too. She looked at him seriously. Can I tell you something, Mike? This job, it's not much. The pay is low, the benefits are okay, but not great, and management clearly doesn't care about us. But the customers? They're real people going through real stuff. And if I can make someone's day a little bit easier, even if it costs me $10 or gets me in trouble, that feels like something that matters. Does that make sense? It makes perfect sense, David said, his voice rough with emotion. The lunch rush hit hard. The ancient register system crashed twice, causing massive delays. Customers got angry, yelling about incompetence and slow service. Rachel handled it all with grace, apologizing, offering discounts where she could, staying calm even when people were borderline abusive during their break. David sat with Rachel in that depressing break room again. She was on her phone, and he could see she was looking at her bank account. Everything okay? He asked. Rachel glanced up, startled. Oh, yeah. Just doing some mental math. My mom's medication refill is due next week, and my car needs new tires. Trying to figure out which one gets priority. She laughed, but it sounded hollow. Being an adult is so much fun. What about your brother? Can he help? He's 17 and working part-time while finishing high school, Rachel said. He gives me what he can, but I won't take money he needs for college. He's smart, Mike, really smart. He got accepted to State University with a partial scholarship. I'm not letting him pass that up because of our situation. David felt something crack inside his chest. Here was a woman who'd given up her own education, who worked 2 jobs, who used her own money to help strangers. And she was worried about her little brother's college fund while looking at medication costs and tire repairs. You're a good person. Rachel, David said. She looked at him like he'd said something strange. I'm just a person? Doing what anyone would do. But that was the thing, David realized. Not everyone would do what Rachel did. He certainly hadn't. He'd been so focused on growth and profits that he'd forgotten about the Rachels of the world. The people on the front lines. The ones who kept his company running not because of the pay or benefits, but because they had integrity and compassion. The afternoon brought another challenge. David was at the register when he accidentally gave a customer the wrong change, $30 too much. He didn't realize until the customer was gone. Panic set in. He'd heard stories about employees having to pay for mistakes out of their own pockets. Rachel noticed his distress. What's wrong? I messed up, David admitted. I gave someone too much change. $30? Rachel's face went serious. Okay, first, don't panic. Mistakes happen. We need to tell the manager, though. The manager came over, and David explained what happened. She sighed heavily like he'd just ruined her entire day. This comes out of your paycheck, she said flatly. That's policy. Wait, Rachel interjected. It was his second day. I was supposed to be supervising him. If anyone should be responsible, it's me. Rachel, stop trying to save everyone, the manager snapped. He made the mistake, he pays for it. That's not fair, Rachel argued. The register system is confusing and outdated. Anyone could make that mistake. I've made it before. Then maybe you should both be written up, the manager said coldly. David watched Rachel's face pale slightly, but she didn't back down. Fine, write me up. But don't take money from someone on their second day who's barely making minimum wage. The standoff lasted several long seconds. Finally, the manager waved her hand dismissively. Whatever. I don't have time for this drama. Just be more careful. She walked away, already back on her phone. Rachel let out a breath she'd been holding. David looked at her in amazement. You were willing to get written up for me? That would have been your second one. Third strike means termination, Rachel said simply. You're new and you need this job. You told me you'd been looking for months. I wasn't going to let them take $30 from you over an honest mistake with a terrible system. But what about you? You need this job too, Rachel smiled sadly. I do, but I also need to be able to look at myself in the mirror. Come on, we've got 2 more hours on shift. Let me show you how to double-check the drawer before you close out. As they worked through the end of the day, David made a decision. He'd seen enough. More than enough. Rachel was exactly the kind of employee who should be running this company, not working for minimum wage while managers, who didn't care coasted by on family connections. Tomorrow was going to be interesting. Tomorrow, everything was going to change. That night, David sat in his home office, unable to sleep. He called his VP of operations. I need you to pull all the files on store 317. Manager records, employee records, financial reports, everything. And I need it by 8 a.m. tomorrow. Is something wrong? The VP asked. Everything's wrong, David said. But I'm about to fix it. Thursday morning felt different. David arrived at the store knowing it was his last day as Mike. His corporate team had worked through the night preparing everything he'd requested. The files on his passenger seat made for disturbing reading. The manager had 17 complaints against her in 2 years. Employee turnover at this location was 3 times the company average. And Rachel? She'd been denied 3 requests for full-time status, which would have given her health insurance and better pay. He walked into the store and found Rachel already there, reorganizing a display that had been knocked over. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes. You okay? David asked. Rachel jumped slightly. Oh, hey, Mike. Yeah, I'm fine. Just had a long night at my other job. This drunk guy wouldn't leave and kept harassing me, so I had to stay until security walked him out. Didn't get home until 2 in the morning. David felt anger surge through him again. This woman worked herself to exhaustion, got harassed at her second job, and still showed up here with a smile, ready to help people. You should have called in sick. Gotten some rest. Can't afford to, Rachel said with a tired smile. Besides, it's your last training day. Wanted to make sure you're set up for success. My last day? Well, tomorrow you're on your own, right? They'll probably move you to a different shift. That's what usually happens. She straightened up, pushing her hair back. But hey, you've been a quick learner. You'll do great. They worked through the morning together. David made sure to watch everything carefully, every interaction Rachel had with customers and coworkers. She complimented the teenage stockboy on his efficiency. She helped an older employee figure out the new scheduling app on her phone. She stopped to clean up a spill before anyone could slip. Even though it wasn't her job, around 11 o'clock, David's phone buzzed. A text from his assistant. Everything is ready. Team arriving at 2 p.m. as requested. His heart started beating faster. This was it. You look nervous, Rachel said, noticing his expression. Everything okay? Actually, yeah, David said. Everything's about to be very okay. At 1:45, David excused himself to the bathroom. He pulled out a fresh shirt from his bag, one of his normal business shirts. He cleaned himself up, fixed his hair. When he looked in the mirror, he saw the CEO again, not Mike the trainee. He took a deep breath and walked back out. The store was moderately busy. Rachel was at her register, helping a customer. The manager was in her usual spot, scrolling through her phone. Other employees were scattered throughout the store. David walked to the manager's station. Excuse me, I need to make an announcement. Can you gather all the employees and close the registers for 15 minutes? The manager looked up, annoyed. What? Mike, you can't just... It's not a request, David said, his voice changing. The voice he used in boardrooms. The voice that didn't accept arguments. Something in his tone made her pause. Who do you think you are? That's exactly what I'm about to tell everyone. Please gather the staff, now. Confused and irritated, the manager made an announcement over the PA system. All employees to the front of the store. Close your registers. Rachel looked confused as she walked over with the others. She caught David's eye and mouthed, What's going on? Within minutes, about 15 employees had gathered, along with a handful of curious customers. Then the front doors opened, and David's corporate team walked in. 6 people in business attire, including his VP of Operations and his head of HR. They carried folders and tablets. The manager's face went white. She clearly recognized some of them from regional meetings. David stepped forward, and the room went silent. "Thank you all for gathering. I know this is unusual, and I apologize for interrupting your workday. My name isn't Mike Patterson." He paused, looking around the room. "My name is David Morrison. I'm the founder and CEO of this company." The reaction was immediate. Gasps, shocked faces, people looking at each other in disbelief. Rachel's hand went to her mouth, her eyes wide. "For the past 4 days, I've been working here as a new employee. I wanted to understand what was happening at the ground level, in our stores, with our real employees and customers. And what I've learned has been both heartbreaking and inspiring." He looked directly at the manager. "I've learned that some people in leadership positions have no business being there. That nepotism and favoritism have created environments where good employees are punished for caring and bad managers coast by without consequence." He turned to his HR director. "Effective immediately, the store manager position is terminated. Please escort her out and ensure she receives her final paycheck and information about her severance package." The manager sputtered, "You can't do this." Your uncle will be receiving his termination notice by end of business today," David said coldly. "I've reviewed the complaints, the turnover rates, and the pattern of negligence. It stops now." As HR led the protesting manager away, David turned back to the stunned employees. His eyes found Rachel, who looked like she might faint. "I've also learned that there are people working in this company who embody everything I hoped to build when I started this business 20 years ago. People who show up every day and choose kindness, who help strangers without expecting anything in return, who stand up for others even when it might cost them their jobs." He walked toward Rachel, and she took a step back, overwhelmed. "Rachel, over the past 4 days, I watched you give your own money to help customers. I watched you work 2 jobs and still show up here with compassion and energy. I watched you defend a new employee you barely knew because you thought it was right. I watched you train someone with patience and respect when no one else would. And I learned that you gave up your dream of becoming a teacher to take care of your family." Tears were streaming down Rachel's face now. Other employees were crying too. "So here's what's going to happen," David continued. "Rachel, effective immediately, you're being promoted to Regional Training Director. Your salary will be $75,000 a year, plus full benefits, including health insurance that will cover both you and your mother. You'll be responsible for training managers and employees across 50 stores on how to actually treat people with dignity and respect." Rachel couldn't speak. She just shook her head in disbelief. "But that's not all," David said, his own voice getting thick with emotion. "I'm also personally paying off your mother's medical debt. All of it. And I'm setting up an education fund for your brother to cover whatever his scholarship doesn't. He's going to college, and you're not going to worry about it." Rachel collapsed into a nearby chair, sobbing. Other employees rushed to hug her. David had to wait several minutes for the commotion to die down. "There's more," he said loudly, getting everyone's attention again. "What I saw here wasn't just about one store or one bad manager. It's a systemic problem in this company. We lost sight of what matters. So I'm announcing several new initiatives." He nodded to his VP, who pulled up a presentation on a tablet. "First, we're creating the Employee Excellence Program. Any employee who exemplifies the values Rachel showed will be eligible for bonuses, scholarships, emergency financial assistance, and recognition. Second, we're raising minimum wage across all stores by $3 an hour, effective next pay period. Third, we're investing $15 million in updating our store systems and infrastructure. No more ancient registers and flickering lights." The employees burst into applause. David held up his hand. "But most importantly, Rachel is going to help me rebuild this company's culture from the ground up. She's going to teach our executives and managers what she taught me this week, that every single person, who walks through our doors matters. That kindness isn't weakness. That doing the right thing should be encouraged, not punished. He turned back to Rachel, who was still crying, surrounded by coworkers. Rachel, I know this is overwhelming. Take the rest of the week off. Paid, obviously. When you come back Monday, you'll be reporting directly to corporate headquarters. We'll start your training there, but really I think we'll be learning from you. Rachel finally found her voice. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, David said gently. You helped a stranger when you had nothing to gain from it. You showed me what this company should be. This is just me paying forward what you gave me. She stood up and walked toward him, and for a moment David thought she might hug him. Instead, she extended her hand formally. Thank you, she said, her voice shaking. Thank you for seeing us. For really seeing us. David shook her hand, then pulled her into a brief hug anyway. Thank you for reminding me why I started this company in the first place. As the meeting broke up, employees clustered around Rachel, congratulating her. David stood back with his team, watching. That was quite something, his VP said quietly. Are you sure about all these changes? The board is going to have questions. Let them question, David said. I'd built this company. I almost destroyed it by forgetting what mattered. Rachel reminded me. And if the board doesn't like it, they can fire me. But he knew they wouldn't. Because by the end of the month, when word spread about what happened, applications to work at the company would flood in. Employee retention would skyrocket. And customers would come back because they'd feel the difference. David watched Rachel laughing through her tears, surrounded by people celebrating her success. She caught his eye across the room and smiled, a real smile, the kind that came from genuine happiness. He smiled back, thinking about that terrible coffee she'd brought him on his first day. The kindness of a stranger who'd had every reason to ignore him but chose to help anyway. Sometimes the best business decision isn't a business decision at all. Sometimes it's just choosing to see people as people. Rachel had taught him that. And he was going to spend the rest of his career making sure that lessons spread throughout every single store, every single employee, every single customer interaction, because that's what really mattered. Not the quarterly reports or the profit margins. The people. It had always been about the people. 3 months later, David sat in his office on the 20th floor of corporate headquarters, but he wasn't looking at spreadsheets or quarterly reports. He was watching a video feed from store 317. The same store where he'd spent those 4 transformative days. The flickering sign was gone, replaced with bright new LED lighting. The automatic doors opened smoothly. Inside, new registers gleamed under updated fixtures. But more importantly, the energy was different. Employees smiled. They talked to each other. They helped customers with genuine warmth. A knock on his door pulled his attention away. Come in. Rachel walked in, and David still did a double take sometimes. She wore professional business clothes now, her hair pulled back neatly, carrying a tablet and folders. But she still had that same warmth in her eyes, that same kindness that had changed everything. You wanted to see the quarterly results? She asked, settling into the chair across from his desk. I did, but first, tell me how the training sessions are going. Rachel's face lit up. This was her passion, David had learned. Teaching came naturally to her. Really well, actually. We finished the Northeast region last week. I've now trained 347 managers and over 1,000 employees on the new customer service protocols. And how are they responding? Honestly? Most of them are relieved, Rachel said, pulling up data on her tablet. They've been frustrated too. They wanted to help customers, wanted to do the right thing, but they felt trapped by rigid policies and managers who didn't care. Now that we've given them permission to be human, to use their judgment, they're thriving. She showed him graphs and charts. Customer satisfaction scores were up 23% across all stores where employees had completed the training. Employee retention had improved by 31%. Even sales were up, which had surprised the board until David explained that happy employees and satisfied customers tend to spend more money. There's something else, Rachel said, her tone shifting. I got an email yesterday from a woman named Patricia. She was the young mom from that day, remember? With the 2 kids and the declined card? David remembered. That had been one of the moments that cracked his heart open. She wanted you to know that she got a better job. She said that day, when I helped her, it was the first time in months someone had treated her like she mattered. She said it gave her the courage to keep trying, to not give up. She's working as a nurse's assistant now, and she brought her kids into the store last week to say thank you. David felt his throat tighten. Did you get to see her? I did, actually. I was visiting that store for a follow-up training. She cried when she saw me. Tried to pay me back for the formula, but I wouldn't take it. Told her to pay it forward instead. Rachel smiled. She told me she already has. She volunteers at a food bank now on weekends. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Rachel said, "You know what's funny? I keep waiting to wake up and find out this was all a dream. That I'm still working that register for minimum wage, watching the clock until I can go to my second job." "It's not a dream," David assured her. "You earned every bit of this." "I just did what felt right," Rachel said softly. "I still don't understand why that was so special." "Because most people don't," David said. "Most people follow rules blindly, protect themselves, look the other way. You didn't. You saw people who needed help, and you helped them, even when it cost you something. That's rare, Rachel. That's valuable. That's what I needed to build this company into what it should have been from the start." Rachel looked down at her hands. "Can I tell you something? My mom keeps crying every time she looks at me. Happy tears, she says. She told me yesterday that she was so scared she'd ruin my life by getting sick, by needing so much help. And now I'm able to tell her that none of it was her fault, that everything turned out okay. Better than okay. How is she doing?" "Really good. The new insurance you provided covers her specialist appointments. She's actually thinking about going back to work part-time, something light. She wants to feel useful again." Rachel's eyes got misty. "And my brother, he starts college next month. He keeps asking if this is really real, if the money is really going to be there. I keep telling him yes, but I think he won't believe it until he's actually sitting in his first class." David opened his desk drawer and pulled out an envelope. "Speaking of your brother, I wanted to give you this." Rachel opened it carefully. Inside was a letter on company letterhead. She read it, her eyes widening. "An internship? You're offering him a summer internship here?" "If he wants it," David said. "Paid, obviously. He can work in any department he's interested in. Get some real-world business experience. It might help him figure out what he wants to study." Rachel's hands were shaking as she held the letter. "David, you've already done so much." "You don't have to, I want to," David interrupted gently. "Rachel, you gave me something I can never fully repay. You reminded me what it means to be human, to care about people. Let me help your family, please." She wiped her eyes quickly. "Thank you. He's going to be so excited." They moved on to business matters. Rachel presented her proposal for expanding the training program to include mental health resources for employees. She'd researched partnerships with counseling services, employee assistance programs, financial wellness coaching. "This is impressive," David said, reviewing her presentation. "How did you put all this together?" "I talked to employees," Rachel said simply. "Asked them what they needed. Turns out a lot of people are struggling with stress, anxiety, money problems. They come to work carrying all this weight, and we expect them to smile and be perfect. I thought maybe we could help them with the weight." David approved the proposal on the spot, asking his assistant to schedule a board presentation for the following week. He knew Rachel would be nervous presenting to the board, but she needed to. They needed to see who was driving these changes. Needed to understand that this wasn't just some feel-good initiative, but a fundamental shift in how the company operated. After Rachel left, David sat alone in his office. His phone buzzed with a text from his wife. "Don't forget dinner with the Johnsons tonight at 7. He smiled and replied that he'd be home early. That was another change. He left the office at reasonable hours now. Spent more time with his family. Because Rachel had taught him something important. You can't pour from an empty cup. You can't expect employees to care about customers if leadership doesn't care about employees. You can't build a company based on values you don't personally live. His desk phone rang. It was his VP of operations. David, you need to see this. The story leaked. What story? About you going undercover. About Rachel. Someone posted about it online and it's going viral. We've got news outlets calling. David felt a moment of panic, then let it go. It's fine. Let it spread. We have nothing to hide, and they didn't. Within 24 hours, the story was everywhere. CEO goes undercover, discovers company's true hero. The response was overwhelming. Applications flooded in from people who wanted to work for a company that valued kindness. Customers shared their own stories of Rachel and other employees who'd helped them. Competitors started copying their programs. The board called an emergency meeting, worried about the attention. But David stood firm. This is who we are now. This is who we should have always been. If that bothers anyone, there's the door. No one took him up on it. Because the numbers didn't lie. The company was more profitable than ever, but more importantly, it was making a difference. Real employees were getting real help. Real customers were being treated with real dignity. 2 weeks after the story broke, David received a letter forwarded from Rachel's old store. It was from Mrs. Chun, the elderly woman who Rachel had helped with her groceries that first week. The handwriting was shaky but careful. Dear Mr. Morrison, I saw the news about Rachel and about you. I wanted you to know that your employee saved my life that day. I was choosing between my heart medication and food. I was so ashamed. But Rachel helped me without making me feel small. She gave me back my dignity. Thank you for seeing how special she is. Thank you for being the kind of boss who cares. My grandson and I pray for you and Rachel every night. God bless you both. David kept that letter in his desk drawer. On difficult days when board members questioned his decisions or when profits dipped slightly because they'd invested in people instead of cost-cutting, he'd take it out and read it. That evening, David drove to store 317 unannounced. He walked through those smooth opening doors, past those bright new lights, and watched his employees work. They didn't know he was there. They were just doing their jobs, but differently now. With care, with attention. With kindness, a young cashier was helping an elderly man figure out his phone so he could use a digital coupon. She wasn't rushing him, wasn't annoyed. She was patient, kind, treating him like he mattered. David thought about Rachel, about how one person's simple acts of kindness had created ripples that were still spreading. How many lives had been changed because she chose to help a stranger? How many employees now felt valued? How many customers felt seen? He walked back to his car, but before leaving, he called Rachel. Hey, she answered. Everything okay? Everything's perfect, David said. I just wanted to say thank you, again, for everything. You don't have to keep thanking me, Rachel laughed. Yes, I do, David said. You didn't just change a company, Rachel. You changed me. You reminded me why any of this matters. After they hung up, David sat in his car for a moment longer, watching people come and go from the store. All of them mattered. Every single one. The customers, the employees, the delivery drivers, the maintenance workers, all of them were carrying their own struggles, their own stories, their own weight, and now his company was trying to help carry some of that weight. Not perfectly, not always successfully, but trying. Really trying. David started his car and drove home, where his family was waiting, where his own life had balance again, where he could be a husband and father, not just a CEO, because Rachel had taught him the most important lesson of all. Being successful means nothing if you've lost your humanity along the way. And getting it back, that was worth more than any quarterly report could ever measure.